The autumn leaves swirled across the wooden dock, and I could hear the water lapping against the shore where William and I used to sit every evening. The folding chairs from the funeral reception were still scattered across the lawn, and someone had left a half-empty coffee cup on the porch railing. The catering van had pulled away an hour ago. The minister had left 30 minutes after that. Most of the guests were gone now, their cars disappearing down the long gravel driveway that William had laid himself, stone by stone, over the course of 3 summers. I stood alone on our dock, the same dock where William had proposed to me 44 years ago, and nobody came to ask if I was all right. My name is Catherine Anderson, though everyone calls me Kate. I'm 66 years old, and 4 days ago I became a widow when my husband William collapsed on this very dock while checking his fishing line. The paramedics said it was massive. A heart attack, nothing anyone could have done. He died doing what he loved, they said, as if that made it easier. But that's not the worst part of the story. The worst part is discovering that some people see grief as opportunity, and the moment someone you love is gone, they start calculating what they can take. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and lake water, the smell of 40 years of memories. I wrapped my cardigan tighter and turned toward the house. That's when I saw them. Ryan's Tesla was still parked near the garage, and through the window I could see him and Amber sitting at our kitchen table, papers spread out in front of them. Amber's laptop open. My son and his wife hadn't left with the other guests. They were waiting. I walked slowly up the path William had built, past the flower beds he'd planted for me every spring, past the stone fire pit where we'd roasted marshmallows with Ryan when he was small, back when he still thought spending summers at the lake was better than anywhere else in the world. I opened the back door. They both looked up. "Mom," Ryan stood, straightening his designer suit jacket. "We need to talk about the property." "The property. Not the house. Not Dad's place. Not home. The property." I set my purse on the counter, my hands shaking slightly. "Can't this wait? Your father just..." "That's exactly why we need to talk now." Amber remained seated, her fingers already typing something on her laptop. "I've been running the numbers, Kate. This lakefront property is worth at least 3.8 million, possibly more with the right marketing. And with the market where it is right now, we need to move fast." Move fast. William had been dead for 96 hours. Ryan pulled out his phone, swiped through something, held it toward me. "I've got investors lined up for Series B funding, but they need to see liquidity. The startup is at a critical stage. Dad would want me to seize this opportunity." "Would he?" I heard my voice come out flat, distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Of course." Amber finally looked up from her laptop, her expression the same one she probably used with difficult clients. "This place has been a money pit for years, Kate. The maintenance alone is ridiculous, and it's not like you can manage it by yourself. You're not getting any younger." "I'm 66, I said quietly. "Not dead." "No one said you were dead." Ryan's voice took on that patronizing edge, the one he'd developed somewhere along the way to becoming a tech entrepreneur. "But be realistic, Mom. You can't maintain 3 acres of lakefront property alone. The dock needs replacing, the roof needs work, the septic system is probably shot. It makes sense to sell while the market is hot. We can find you a nice condo in town, something manageable." "A nice condo." After 40 years of building this place, of every weekend spent here, of every memory soaked into these walls. A nice condo. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had his eyes become so calculating? When had he stopped seeing his childhood home and started seeing dollar signs? "Your father's will is being read on Monday," I said, "at the lawyer's office, 10 a.m. We'll discuss everything then." Amber's jaw tightened. "That's 4 days away. We've already had 3 realtors out here taking photos. I've drafted the listing. We could have offers by next week if we move now." They'd had realtors here. While I was planning William's funeral, while I was choosing his casket and writing his obituary, and trying to remember how to breathe, they'd had strangers walking through our home, photographing our life, putting a price tag on our memories. "The listing is on hold," I said, and my voice had that steel in it that surprised even me, until Monday. "Kate." Amber stood now, her voice dropping into something that might have sounded gentle if you didn't see her eyes. "I know this is emotional for you, but William wouldn't want you clinging to the past. He'd want you to be practical. To think about your future. To think about Lily and Noah's future. Our grandchildren, 8 and 6 years old. The ones who hadn't been allowed to come to the funeral because Amber thought it would be too traumatic. The ones who'd spent exactly 3 weekends at this lake house in the past 5 years because Ryan and Amber were always too busy. You're right, I said quietly. William would want me to think about their future. That's exactly what he did. What's that supposed to mean? Ryan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, typed a quick response, looked back at me. It means we'll discuss everything on Monday, with the lawyer, as your father specified. They left 20 minutes later, Amber's lips pressed into a thin line, Ryan making calls before his car was even out of the driveway. I watched them go, watched the dust settle on the gravel drive, and stood alone in the house that William and I had built together. Not built, really. William had built it. Designed it, framed it, wired it, plumbed it, finished it. He'd been a contractor by trade, and this lake house was his masterpiece. Every window placement chosen for the perfect view. Every detail considered, every nail driven with love. I walked through the rooms slowly. The great room with its cathedral ceiling and exposed beams. The kitchen where we'd cooked together, where William had installed the stove I'd wanted, the farmhouse sink, the butcher block counters he'd sanded and sealed himself. The master bedroom with the sliding doors that opened onto a private deck overlooking the water. William's reading glasses were still on his nightstand. His fishing hat hung by the door. His boots sat on the mat, mud still dried on the soles from his last walk down to the dock. I sat on our bed, and that's when I remembered. The letter. Mr. Harper, William's lawyer, had pressed it into my hands yesterday at the funeral. He'd leaned in close, his voice gentle. William gave this to me 6 months ago, Kate. He said to make sure you got it after the service. Open it when you're ready. I'd tucked it in my purse without looking at it, too numb to process anything beyond getting through each moment. But now, sitting in our bedroom with the afternoon light slanting through the windows William had installed, I pulled out the envelope. Heavy cream paper. William's handwriting across the front, strong and sure. For Kate. Read this before Monday. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. My dearest Kate, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I won't be there to grow old with you in the house we built. Sorry I won't see Lily and Noah grow up. Sorry I won't be there to hold your hand through whatever comes next. But I'm not sorry for what I've done with our property. You know as well as I do that Ryan changed. I don't know exactly when it happened, somewhere between Stanford and his first startup, between meeting Amber and moving to Silicon Valley, between becoming successful and forgetting what success really means. I've watched him look at this place, our place, and see nothing but real estate. I've watched him calculate market values while standing on the dock where I taught him to fish. I've heard him tell people at parties that his parents have property on the lake, using it to impress, but never actually visiting. Never bringing the kids, never wanting to be here unless there was something in it for him. Do you remember last Christmas when we invited them up? Ryan spent the whole weekend on calls, talking about unlocking value and liquid assets. I heard him tell Amber that when the old man finally kicks it, they could easily get $4 million for the place. He thought I was in the garage. I heard every word. That's when I knew Kate, really knew. So I made arrangements. I met with Harper, set up documents, created structures that will protect what we built. Not just the physical house, but what it represents. Family, legacy, love that isn't measured in dollars. What did I do? You'll find out Monday. But Kate, I need you to trust me. Trust that every decision was made to protect you, to protect this place, and to protect Lily and Noah from their parents' greed. Ryan wants our property. He'll get exactly what his love and loyalty are worth, exactly what his years of neglect and calculation have earned him. I've watched you make excuses for him. I've watched you soften his criticisms, try to bridge the gap between us. You're a better person than I am, Kate. You keep hoping he'll remember who he used to be. That little boy who thought building this dock with his dad was the best summer ever. That teenager who brought his friends up here every chance he got. That young man who promised he'd bring his own kids here someday to make the same memories. But that boy is gone, Kate, and you need to stop sacrificing yourself trying to bring him back. Everything I did was for you. Every hour I worked, every board I sawed, every nail I hammered, all of it was to create something that would outlast me. Something that would take care of you when I couldn't. Something that couldn't be sold off and squandered by people who never appreciated it in the first place. Trust me, my love. Trust the plan. And when Monday comes, when you hear what I've arranged, remember this. You owe Ryan nothing. Not this house. Not your grief. Not one more ounce of the love you've wasted on someone who stopped deserving it years ago. I love you. I've loved you from that first day. I saw you at the county fair in 1979 until my last breath. You were the only thing that mattered. This house was just wood and nails. You made it home. Forever yours, William P. S. Don't let Ryan intimidate you. Don't let Amber's spreadsheets make you doubt. Stand firm. Harper has everything arranged exactly as I specified. All you have to do is show up on Monday and let the truth unfold. P.P.S. Check the tackle box in the garage, the old green one. Bottom drawer of my workbench. There's something in there you'll need. The letter slipped from my fingers onto the quilt. William had known. Of course he'd known. He'd heard what I'd refused to hear, seen what I'd refused to see, understood what I'd spent years denying. Our son had been waiting for him to die. I sat there as the sun moved across the floor, as the shadows lengthened, as the lake outside our window turned from blue to gold to grey. Then I stood, walked to the garage, and found the old green tackle box exactly where William said it would be. Inside was a USB drive with a label in William's handwriting. Evidence. Give to Harper if needed. I didn't plug it in. Didn't need to. I knew what would be on there. William had been a detail-oriented man. If he said he had evidence, he had evidence. I put the USB drive in my pocket, went back inside, and made myself dinner. Spaghetti, the way William liked it, with too much garlic and fresh basil from the garden he'd planted by the back door. I ate alone at the table where Ryan had spread his papers, calculating how to sell my life, and I felt something change inside me. Not grief, though that was still there. Something harder, clearer. Something that felt almost like purpose. The weekend crawled by. Saturday morning brought text messages, 5 of them before I'd even had my coffee. Ryan, Mom, we need to discuss this rationally. Ryan, Amber has buyers interested already. Amber, Kate, I'm forwarding you some listings in town, much more suitable. Ryan, the property taxes alone are insane. You can't afford this on your own. Amber, we're just trying to help you see reason. I deleted them without responding and spent the day in William's workshop, touching his tools, reading the notes he'd left himself on projects he'd never finish, breathing in the smell of sawdust and oil and memories. My phone rang. Ryan. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Amber this time. Voicemail. By Sunday evening, I had 14 missed calls and 23 text messages. The tone shifted from concerned to annoyed to borderline threatening. Amber, we've already made commitments based on the sale of this property. Ryan, Mom, you're being selfish. Think about Lily and Noah's future. Amber, you're not thinking clearly. Grief affects judgment. Ryan, Dad would be disappointed in how you're handling this. That last one almost made me laugh. William would be disappointed. The man who'd spent 6 months planning exactly how to handle this. The man who'd seen through them long before I had. William would be disappointed, all right, but not in me. Sunday afternoon, someone knocked on my door. Hard, insistent pounding that made the windows rattle. I looked through the peephole and saw Ryan's face, red and angry. Behind him, Amber stood with her arms crossed. Mom, open the door. We drove 2 hours to talk to you. I stepped back from the door and walked to the kitchen, letting them knock, letting them yell, letting them show their true selves to the empty woods and silent lake. They gave up after 15 minutes. I heard Ryan shouting something about Monday morning and we'll see about this. Then the sound of his Tesla accelerating too fast down the gravel drive, spraying stones. My phone buzzed. You're making a mistake you'll regret. I turned my phone off and spent the rest of the day on the dock, watching the sun set over the water, talking to William like he was still sitting beside me. Monday morning came cold and clear. I woke at dawn, showered, dressed carefully. Navy slacks and a cream sweater William had always loved. Pearl earrings he'd given me for our 40th anniversary. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked older, tireder, but she also looked ready. Mr. Harper's office was downtown, a 30-minute drive from the lake. I arrived 20 minutes early and sat in the parking lot, William's letter in my purse, the USB drive in my pocket, my heart beating slow and steady. At exactly 9:55, a Tesla pulled into the parking lot. Ryan and Amber emerged, both dressed in expensive business attire. Ryan wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than William's entire wardrobe. Amber had on a white pantsuit with shoes that clicked sharply on the pavement. They saw my car and came over immediately. Ryan tapped on my window. I got out slowly, locked the door, faced them. "Mum." Ryan's voice was tight, controlled. "Before we go in, we need to be on the same page. Amber and I have already structured a deal that maximizes value for everyone. We just need you to sign off." "We're family," Amber added, her smile not reaching her eyes. "We should present a united front." Family. That word again, used like a weapon. At exactly 10 o'clock, Mr. Harper's secretary appeared at the entrance. "He's ready for you." We filed into his office. Mr. Harper stood behind his mahogany desk, a man in his 70s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd been William's friend for 40 years, had drawn up the papers when we bought our first property, had been at our wedding anniversary party 3 years ago. He knew exactly what was about to happen. "Please, sit," he gestured to the chairs arranged in front of his desk. Ryan and Amber took the 2 leather chairs. I sat in a third chair slightly to the side. Already, unconsciously, we'd arranged ourselves into opposing sides. Mr. Harper opened a leather portfolio and pulled out several documents. "First, let me express my deepest condolences. William was a good man, one of the best I've known. I'll miss him greatly." Amber shifted in her chair. Ryan nodded quickly, his eyes fixed on the documents. "Now," Mr. Harper continued, his voice measured and formal, "William came to me 6 months ago with very specific instructions regarding his estate. He made several changes to his previous arrangements and asked me to ensure everything was executed exactly as he specified." "Changes?" Ryan leaned forward. "What kind of changes?" "Let me read the relevant portions." Mr. Harper picked up the first document. "To my beloved wife, Catherine Marie Anderson, I leave the following. Our lake house property and all structures thereon, currently valued at $3.8 million. This property is transferred into an irrevocable trust with Catherine as the sole beneficiary and trustee." The room went absolutely silent. "Wait," Amber's voice came out strangled. "What about—" "I'm not finished." Mr. Harper's voice cut through hers like a knife. "The trust is structured such that the property cannot be sold, subdivided, or transferred for a period of 25 years, or until Catherine's death, whichever comes later. Upon Catherine's death, the property passes to William's grandchildren, Lily Ann Mitchell and Noah William Mitchell, in equal shares." Ryan's face was turning red. "That's insane. He can't just—" Mr. Harper continued reading as if he hadn't spoken. "To my grandchildren, Lily and Noah, I also establish an educational trust valued at $500,000. This trust shall be administered by First National Bank and used solely for educational expenses. The trust includes an additional provision. Each grandchild may utilize the lake house property as a private study retreat during their college and graduate school years, with all expenses covered by the trust. No parent or guardian may access these funds or restrict this usage." But Amber started. "I'm still not finished." Mr. Harper turned a page. "To my son, Ryan Charles Anderson, I leave the following items. My complete workshop tool collection, as itemized in Appendix A. My fishing equipment, as itemized in Appendix B. My collection of woodworking and construction manuals. These are the tools I use to build everything I created, including the lake house you've been so eager to sell. They represent 40 years of work, of craftsmanship, of building something with my own hands, instead of sitting in meetings talking about other people's money." The silence that followed was total, absolute. "Additionally," Mr. Harper continued, his voice never wavering, "I leave to Ryan the sum of $1, to be paid in cash immediately following this reading." Ryan shot to his feet. "This is insane!" He was senile. "You took advantage of him. I'll contest this so fast." "Please sit down, Mr. Anderson." Mr. Harper's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. "There's more, and you'll want to hear it." Ryan sat, but his hands gripped the armrests so hard his knuckles turned white. Amber's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the way her face had drained of colour. William wanted me to read the following statement in his own words. Mr. Harper picked up a separate sheet of paper and began to read. Ryan, if you're hearing this, I'm dead. And if I know you, which I do, you've spent the past few days calculating how quickly you can sell the lake house, treating your mother like an obstacle to your liquidity, talking about market values and investment opportunities while she's still grieving. I hope I'm wrong. I hope you spent these days comforting her, supporting her, being the son I raised you to be. But I don't think you did. Let me remind you of some numbers. Real numbers, not the property values you've been calculating. $273,000. That's what I spent on your education. Stanford wasn't cheap. $41,000 on your first startup that failed in 8 months. $68,000 helping you through your rough patch when you and Amber separated. These aren't estimates. I kept records. Every check I wrote, I recorded. I'm not mentioning this to make you feel guilty. I'm mentioning it because I wanted to see what you'd become with every advantage I never had. I wanted to believe that giving you everything would make you appreciate something. Instead, I watched you become someone I don't recognize. Someone who measures love in equity and family in assets. Someone who visited his childhood home exactly 4 times in the past 5 years, each time bringing a realtor's card just in case we ever wanted to cash out. Yes, Ryan, I knew about the realtors. Did you really think small-town agents don't talk? Did you really think I wouldn't hear about my own son pricing my life's work? I have recordings, Ryan. Evidence of conversations you had standing on my dock, talking about how much you could get for the place. I have text messages between you and Amber discussing investment strategies using the lake property liquidation. I have voicemails from realtors you contacted while I was still alive. The USB drive in my pocket suddenly felt very heavy. Any attempt to contest this will, any legal action whatsoever, will result in the immediate release of all this evidence. Every news outlet in the valley, every business contact in your network, everyone you've ever tried to impress. They'll all see exactly who you are. You wanted my property. You wanted my life's work handed to you so you could tear it down and turn it into cash. Too bad. You got exactly what you deserved. The tools to build something yourself, and $1 representing the exact value of your love. Think about that every time you look at your children and realize they'll inherit something you couldn't take from them. Think about how your father loved you enough to build you a childhood, but not enough to let you destroy it for profit. That's your legacy, Ryan. Not my property, your choices. Mr. Harper set down the letter. The silence stretched out, heavy and suffocating. This is Ryan's. Voice came out hoarse. He was sick, confused. We'll fight this. I wouldn't recommend it. Mr. Harper pulled out a thumb drive, held it up. This contains everything William mentioned. Time-stamped recordings of conversations between you and your wife, discussing the sale of the property, dating back 14 months. Text messages with realtors. Photographs of you bringing prospective buyers to walk the property. There's even video from last Thanksgiving where you spent most of dinner calculating property taxes. He also documented the 3 times you contacted estate lawyers while he was still alive, asking about expediting inheritance processes. The 2 times you tried to get your mother to sign power of attorney forms just in case. And the conversation you had at the funeral, at the lake house itself, trying to get signatures before your father was even buried. Amber made a small sound, almost like a whimper. We weren't, Ryan started. Yes, you were. I spoke for the first time since entering the office, and every head turned toward me. You were doing exactly what your father said. I heard you in the kitchen on Thursday. I saw the papers you brought. I watched you measure the value of your father's life in square footage and lakefront access. For 44 years, I've made excuses for you. I've told your father he was being too hard on you, that you'd grow out of it, that you were just focused on your career. I've been the bridge between you, trying desperately to hold together a family that you tore apart the moment it stopped serving your purposes. Not anymore. Mom? Listen, Ryan stood again, swaying slightly. We can work this out. You can't manage that property alone. We can hire people, set up management, find a solution that works for everyone. The solution that works for everyone, I said quietly, standing to face him, is the one your father created. The house stays. The grandchildren get their education and their summers at the lake, and you get exactly what you earned. You can't. Amber was on her feet now too. Kate, be reasonable. Ryan's business needs. I don't care about Ryan's business. The words came out sharp, final. I care about the home your husband built. I care about the memories we created there. I care about Lily and Noah having the same opportunities you've denied them by being too busy for family vacations. I care about what William wanted, which was to protect what we built from people who see nothing but dollar signs. Mr. Harper, I said, turning to the lawyer, is there anything else I need to sign? Just a few documents confirming the trust transfer and your acceptance of the terms. He slid papers across his desk. I read each one carefully, William's voice in my head reminding me to never sign anything without understanding it completely. Behind me, Ryan and Amber whispered urgently. I didn't turn around. Didn't care what plots they were hatching. The papers were ironclad. William had seen to that. When the last signature was done, Mr. Harper reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a $1 bill. He slid it across the desk to Ryan. Your inheritance, Mr. Anderson, as specified in your father's will. Ryan stared at it like it might bite him. The bill sat there on the polished wood, crisp and new, worth exactly nothing compared to what he'd counted on. Take it, I said, gathering my purse. It's yours. Your father made sure of it. I walked toward the door. Mr. Harper opened it for me. Kate. Amber's voice was high and desperate. Please. Think about the children. Think about family. I paused at the threshold, turned back to look at them both. I am thinking about the children, I said. That's why their grandfather made sure you can't liquidate their inheritance for startup funding. That's why they'll have somewhere to go, somewhere real and permanent, when they're old enough to appreciate it. He protected them from you. The only family member they needed protection from was their parents. I walked out. Mr. Harper closed the door with a soft click. The morning air felt cool and clean. I stood in the parking lot and breathed it in, deep and full, like I'd been holding my breath for years. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out, expecting another angry message from Ryan. Instead, it was a text from Mr. Harper. William would be very proud of you. I smiled. Actually smiled. The first real smile since William died. I drove back to the lake slowly, taking the scenic route, past the diner where William and I used to stop for breakfast on Sunday mornings, past the hardware store where he'd spent hours picking out just the right materials, past the church, where we'd been married 44 years ago. The lake house looked different when I pulled into the driveway. Not empty, not hollow. Just mine. Completely mine. I made myself lunch and ate on the deck, looking out at the water. Then I called the number William had left in his papers, the one for the young couple who'd been renting the cottage 3 properties down. Is the caretaker position still open? I asked when they answered. 2 months later, the lake house was more alive than it had been in years. The young couple, Mark and Jennifer, had moved into the small guest house William had built, helping with maintenance and renovations. I'd started a community woodworking class in William's workshop, teaching people the skills he'd taught me. Every Saturday, the sounds of saws and sanders filled the air, and William's tools were being used the way he'd always intended. Lily and Noah came for Thanksgiving, their first visit in 3 years. Ryan and Amber had dropped them off without a word, peeling out of the driveway like the property might contaminate them. Grandma Kate! Noah had run straight to me, his 6-year-old energy infectious. Dad says we get to stay the whole weekend. We made cookies using William's grandmother's recipe. We went fishing off the dock. We built a small birdhouse in the workshop, and I showed them how their grandfather had taught me to measure twice and cut once. We sat by the fire pit and roasted marshmallows, and Lily asked me to tell her stories about her grandpa. On Sunday evening, as we were cleaning up dinner, my phone rang. Ryan. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom. His voice sounded different, smaller. Amber and I are separating. I said nothing, waiting. The startup failed. Series B fell through after investors did background checks. Someone sent them. They found out about Dad's will. About what I tried to do. His voice cracked. Everything's falling apart. Good, part of me wanted to say. You deserve it. But then, I heard William's voice in my head. She's a better person than I am, Kate. I'm sorry that happened, I said carefully. Aye, he paused. The kids said they had a good weekend. Lily said they want to come back for Christmas. They're always welcome here. Another long pause. Would it be okay if I came by sometime? Not to talk about the property. Just to, I don't know, see the place. Remember, I looked out the window at the lake, at the dock where William had taught our son to fish, at the workshop where he'd shown Ryan how to use every tool, at the life we'd built together. The door is always open, I said quietly. But Ryan, you have to come as my son, not as someone looking for something to take. You have to come ready to help, to work, to be part of this place instead of apart from it. I understand. His voice was barely a whisper. Thank you, Mom. He came the following Saturday. Alone, in a rental car. Wearing jeans and an old sweatshirt I recognized from his college days. He stood in the driveway for a long moment before walking to the door. I let him in. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just stood there, measuring the distance between us. The roof needs patching, I said finally, and the dock could use new boards before winter. Your father's tools are in the workshop. He nodded. Okay. We worked side by side that day, barely speaking, but the silence was different. Not empty, not calculating, just quiet, like we were both learning a new language. It would take time, maybe years, maybe it would never be what it once was. But as I watched my son hammer boards into the dock his father had built, as I saw him measure carefully and cut precisely the way William had taught him, I felt something shift, not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe, eventually, a bridge. One built slowly, carefully, with the same tools William had left him. One earned, not inherited. That evening, after Ryan left, I sat on the dock and watched the sun set over the water. I pulled out William's letter, read it one more time. You gave me more than property, I whispered to the gathering darkness. You gave me permission to stop breaking myself trying to fix what was already broken. You gave me freedom. The lake reflected the last light of day, turning gold and copper and bronze. Somewhere in the woods, an owl called. The wind rustled through the pine trees William had planted when Ryan was born, and I sat there in the house my husband built, surrounded by the life we'd created, protected by the love he'd left behind, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. If you've ever sacrificed everything for someone who treated it like it was nothing, this story is for you. If you've ever been made to feel like your life's work was just an asset to be liquidated, just know, your worth was never measured by what someone else could take from you. To anyone fighting their own battle right now, dealing with family who see inheritance before love, who calculate value before grief, remember this. Sometimes the greatest gift is protection, not possession. Sometimes love means saying no. Sometimes family means honoring those who honored you, not enabling those who dishonored everything you built. What hit you hardest about this story? Would you have stood firm like Kate, or given in to keep the peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your voice matters and your story deserves to be heard. Don't stop here. Click that next video and discover another powerful story that will remind you that you're not alone. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and be part of this community where real stories meet real strength. See you in the next one.